FYI, there's going to be spoilers in this episode because you can't not talk about what happened in the issue when talking about how good the writing is. So if you haven't read the book yet and you want to watch this later after you read it, come back and enjoy. How's everybody doing? Matt Sardo, Monkeys Fighting Robots. I need to talk to you about Amazing Spider-Man 25. Drops today. Hits your local comic book shop. I read it yesterday, and I was getting ready to do my review. And I was like, man, I hate this book. This book's the worst. Everything about it. I was like, it's just bothered me. And then I woke up at 2 a.m. and I thought about it again. And I was like, okay, this book is well written. This book is drawn amazingly. And then there's a moment at the end with Peter Parker where I was like, this guy is experiencing all the frustration that I've had with the series. And it comes to a head. And I was like, oh, shit. I actually really like this book. I like it a lot more than I thought I would. It's very tragic. And I'm going to say a lot because like it's emotional. And as a man or as a guy dealing with relationships and who's had relationships fail and has watched somebody, fall out of love with you or, just the disillusion of a relationship and then to see them fall in love with somebody else, it's so heartbreaking. It really is. And by the end, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that Zeb Wells kind of turned the tables on me. How we got there is ridiculous, completely ridiculous. But Amazing Spider-Man 25 is such a good story. And it is capped off with a very gut-wrenching ending. And I can't believe I'm saying this because 12 hours ago I was like, oh my God. All my previous Spider-Man bias was creeping in and it was just destroying it for me. And then I was like, okay, I woke up at 2:00 in the morning with a fresh set of eyes and probably not a fresh brain, but more of a philosophical brain. And I was like, oh my God, this is good. So Zeb Wells is the writer. Kaare Andrews and John Romita Jr. are the pencilers on it. Kaare and Scott Hanna are the inkers. Marcio Menyz is the colorist, and Joe Caramagana is the letter on the book. And this book is really good, like beautiful. It's beautiful. There's definitely a lot of action in there, and the panel layouts and Kaare's pencils are very 90s-esque, man. This book is so 90s. It's beautiful. There's some nice silhouette panels in there. And then all the chaos of everything that's going on, Joe really handles the action well with the lettering and the sound effects. And there's lots of close-ups of Mary Jane and her eyes and tears and silhouettes of hands, and everything just works in this book so well. And then there's like uber 90s Walking Dead Mary Jane, all guns blazing. That's awesome. Totally reminiscent of 13-year-old Matt being like, oh my God, this is awesome. And this is okay. Another thing about this book is this is Marvel's version of The Walking Dead. Mary Jane goes through her version of The Walking Dead post-apocalyptic universe survival mode. And that's what kind of like got me, is if you're stuck in this world all alone, and you're with this other gentleman that's helping you try to save the world, like you can't help have an emotional connection with this person. And then like you find some kids and then you kind of bond as a family, and because you're going through all this tragedy and everything's trying to kill you, like you become this tight unit. And of course, this is the evolution of the relationship and how it grows. And over time, I mean, it looks like it was like 4 or 5 years that this happened. Of course, this is the end product. And another powerful thing about this issue is it reminded me of Castaway, where things are kind of like roles are reversed, where Tom Hanks is Mary Jane kind of getting through the island and surviving on the island and having her emotional journey, and she's in a different emotional place when Peter shows up because it's 4 years later. But also then Peter Parker is Tom Hanks in that Castaway where he feels like no time has passed in the relationship that he had with his love interest in the movie. And then she is completely moved on because he's been gone forever. Like there's a dual sword of Castaway happening in this issue. And I thought it was very unique in the perspective that you got from both sides. One of the other elements of this book that really sticks with me in my bones at 2-3 o'clock in the morning is the end of the book, where Peter is confronted by his friends, the Fantastic Four in Captain America. And he's just like, I don't give a shit. I am so angry at the world. I am so frustrated with the world. I feel like I've done everything right, and I'm getting screwed over. And I've had enough, and I'm going to take it out on everyone I know. I can relate to that emotion. I've seen people go through it. I feel like I've gone through it. And he's like F you and like decks Human Torch and just goes after the Thing. And I was like, oh my God. I really relate to this character, and I really can understand his motivations, and I feel his frustration. I mean, ever since One More Day, like I feel like fans have been frustrated about where we are in the universe when it comes to Mary Jane and Peter Parker. And this whole like alternate reality, alternate timeline where she creates a whole nother family. When you speak it like that, you're like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. This is completely ridiculous on how we got there. And then as I'm explaining it to you right now, I'm like, oh man, I just need Peter Parker and Spider-Man to be relatable. And then here I am saying how I can relate to that frustration of you're doing everything right and you're just getting screwed over. You're trying your damnedest to do everything right and you're just getting screwed over. Everybody's had that feeling before. And then you've just had enough. You've just had enough. And Peter's had enough at this point in time. And it'll be, and we are, since this is in the past, we've kind of seen where he's been since then. This is where things get really weird. But it's just, oh man. So much frustration, so much anger. And then you get to see him unleash it. And you're like, that's how I've felt for the past like 10 plus years with what's been going on with this relationship. And I'm finally glad to see Peter expressing the same frustration that I have. And it's almost like when we had the latest Spider-Man film. They rebooted it 3 times, and you're like, oh man, what was the first, the Tobey Maguire film? You're like, oh man, I guess I just wasted my time there. And then you had the Andrew Garfield, and well, I guess I wasted my time there. This film that brought all of them back and connected all the timelines makes it feel like you've been validated for all the time that you've watched these other films. And this is kind of where I feel with issue 25 is like my frustration with Peter Parker and Mary Jane and what Joe Quesada did to them, I feel is finally validated. Peter's finally at the point where he's like, damn it, like I've just had enough. And then he's like, you know what, Ben Grimm, I don't give a shit. I'm going to take you out. And I'm, whatever you got, I'm going to take. And it was so good. I was so happy and elated, and it was like an emotional release for me. But that's good storytelling. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at Peter just punching the Human Torch, and then he like gets low to punch Ben Grimm. Like, you're just like, I feel all of this. And then Captain America comes a little heavy-handed, and you just see a broken man. You see a broken man. And I feel it. I feel it so much. And it's so weird that like 12 hours earlier, I was like, I couldn't see this story because all my emotional Spider-Man baggage was clouding that. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, I got to think about this book. I got to think about it from different angles. And I was like, it's so good. That last panel of Peter Parker just being there, I'm like, it's such utter loneliness and frustration, and it captures so much by saying with saying so little. There's no words. And there's just a silhouette and a few lights at night and the clouds, barely, just a lot of darkness. And you just feel it. So it's really good. The book is good. Amazing Spider-Man is really good. The whole entire team did an amazing job. I think everything flows so well. And then the difference between Kaar's artwork and John Romita Jr.'s works extremely well. Like, it's two different tales, and it's a great post-apocalyptic adventure of two people trying to survive, and then they find a family, and they make a family, and they like have an emotional bond that's unbreakable, even if Peter Parker's your boyfriend. It's so good. It fires on so many different cylinders, and it hits so many different emotional points. I'm really interested to see how they tie this all together with Amazing Spider-Man 26, which I think will kind of tie everything together. That's just my personal. It's how they've been advertising it. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know who's going to sacrifice who, but like, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good. Let me know when you read Amazing Spider-Man 25 what you thought. Comment below, like this video, and thank you so much for everything you do, supporting the channel, supporting Monkeys Fighting Robots, and I will talk to you soon.